There's a reason people cling to God, and it's not the reason they tell you. It's not faith, not tradition, not even fear of hell. The real reason is much older, much deeper, and far more human than any scripture wants to admit. Because when you strip religion to its bones, you find something uncomfortable. People don't believe in God because he's real. They believe because they can't handle the alternative. But here's the strange part. Once you see why the mind holds on so tightly, the grip starts to loosen on its own. And that's what this video uncovers, piece by piece. The fear we don't talk about. Every belief begins with the same silent question. What happens when everything is out of my control? It is a question people try to ignore until life backs them into a corner, a diagnosis, a loss. A moment when the ground gives way under their feet. In that moment, the mind does not look for logic. It looks for something that can hold the weight of fear. Religion steps in immediately. It offers certainty wrapped in comforting language. It gives you a plan when you have none. It gives you a protector when you feel exposed. It gives you a cosmic parent who supposedly sees further than you can, who knows what he is doing, even when you do not. That is the emotional hook, not doctrine, not theology, emotional safety. But here is the contradiction that people struggle to acknowledge. Life still falls apart anyway. Prayers go unanswered. Good people suffer. Chaos does not disappear simply because someone believes it is supervised. Deep down, people sense this. They see the cracks. They feel the inconsistency. Yet admitting it out loud means accepting something far more terrifying, that there may be no one running the show, no ultimate order, no hidden script that will reveal itself later, just randomness, just uncertainty, just the brutal honesty of reality. Most people are not afraid of losing religion. They are afraid of losing the illusion that someone is in control. Letting go of God feels like stepping off a cliff without a safety rail. It feels like walking into the unknown with no map, and psychologically, that is almost unbearable. So they cling. Not because the belief is unshakable, but because the alternative feels like emotional free fall. That is the first reason we cannot let go. God feels safer than uncertainty. And the story only gets deeper from here. The illusion of being watched. Humans behave differently the moment they feel eyes on them. It is ancient programming, village life, social survival. Reputation meant everything, so being watched was a form of protection. Even today, the presence of a single witness can change how a person speaks, walks, or reacts. Now place that instinct inside a religious framework, and something powerful happens. Religion does not just tell you that someone is watching. It tells you that someone is watching all the time. Invisible surveillance, constant moral monitoring, a permanent audience that never blinks. The so-called eye in the sky. This creates pressure, of course, the pressure to behave, to control impulses, to police your own mind. But it also creates something people rarely admit out loud: comfort. Because if someone sees everything, then your pain cannot be meaningless. Your loneliness cannot be invisible. Your struggles cannot be wasted. The watcher becomes a silent witness to your entire life. And for many people, that is soothing in a way nothing else is. But here is the twist that unravels the illusion. Take away the watcher and something unsettling happens. People feel exposed rather than free. They feel alone rather than empowered. They feel untethered, like astronauts drifting without gravity. The presence of the watcher was never about morality. It was about stability. About having someone to validate every fear, every hope, every wound. Someone to reassure you that your life is not slipping by unnoticed. This is why belief does not vanish with logic. You cannot argue someone out of the need to be seen, because the watcher is not a doctrine they memorized. It is a psychological anchor they have carried since childhood. And that anchor is welded to something even stronger still: the need to feel special. Most religions whisper the same powerful promise. You are chosen, you are loved, you are part of a divine mission. It is not presented as a suggestion. It is delivered as certainty, woven into prayers, repeated in sermons, embedded in childhood stories. And for the human mind, this message is intoxicating. Because reality, by itself, does not offer that kind of reassurance. Reality does not hand out purpose labels. It does not tell you why you are here. It does not pat you on the back or give your existence a grand narrative. Existence is quiet, impersonal, indifferent. It simply unfolds with or without you. But belief changes that in an instant. One moment you are a single organism on a small planet in a vast universe. The next moment you matter to the creator of that universe. Not because of your actions, not because of your achievements. You matter by default. You matter simply because a higher power says so. That kind of guaranteed significance is addictive. It fills a void the real world never promised to fill. It gives purpose to your pain and meaning to your struggles. Even your failures feel divinely curated. Letting go of God means letting go of that narrative. It means confronting a truth most people avoid for their entire lives. You might just be another human doing their best to survive, to love, to understand, to find direction. No divine spotlight, no cosmic applause, no chosen status. Just you, trying to make sense of things like everyone else. And that humility is terrifying. For many, it feels like erasing the story that made their life special. But beneath this need to feel chosen lies something even more primal, something older than religion itself. And that is where the next reason begins. Fear of death. But not the way you think. Everyone repeats the same idea. People believe in God because they fear dying. It sounds logical, it sounds simple, but it misses the real psychological core. The true fear is not death itself. The true fear is non-existence. The idea of being erased, the thought that everything you are, everything you remember, everything you love could disappear without leaving a trace. That is the fear that keeps people awake at night. Not the final breath, but the silence that follows. Religion solves that silence instantly. Heaven offers continuity, a promise that your story goes on, cleaned up, and perfected. Hell offers continuity too, in a darker, more threatening way. Either path ensures that you are still there, conscious, aware, present. The body may fall away, but the self continues. This is the emotional architecture that belief protects. It protects the idea that your identity cannot be erased. Letting go of God means letting go of that comforting story. It means accepting that your life might not have a sequel. It means facing the possibility that your memories are temporary, that your existence is finite, that after the last moment, there may be nothing but the quiet return to the universe that created you. And for many people, that possibility is unbearable. But death is not the only pressure point that keeps belief alive. There is another layer that works more subtly. It is not rooted in fear of the unknown, but in culture, in heritage, in the emotional language people are raised with. It is woven into traditions, holidays, family rituals, and shared expectations. It feels familiar and safe long before a person can even question it. And this cultural weight shapes belief just as powerfully as the fear of what happens after life ends. The weight of childhood programming. Religion enters the mind incredibly early, long before memory forms clearly, and long before reasoning becomes a skill. It slips in through lullabies, bedtime prayers, picture books, and the tone of a parent's voice when they say God is watching. It shapes the wiring long before you know what wiring even means. It builds the guilt structures that later feel like instinct. It gives you an emotional vocabulary that feels natural even when it is borrowed. You were told that God loves you. You were told that God watches you. You were told that God punishes you. These ideas are planted at an age when you accept everything as truth, simply because the adults around you say so. And once they settle, they do not disappear with age. They sink deeper. They become part of the emotional foundation you stand on. The child inside you never completely outgrows those lines, because they were spoken at a time when your mind had no defenses. So, when adults say, "I cannot stop believing," they are not lying and they are not weak. They are describing a very real psychological conflict. Part of them may doubt, part of them may question, part of them may want clarity instead of superstition. But another part, the early part, the childhood part, is still holding on to those first lessons. They are not fighting a doctrine. They are fighting their own childhood self, the self that was taught to trust invisible authority without question. But childhood programming is only half of the picture. It creates the internal emotional structure, yet something external keeps it reinforced. There is a social dimension just as powerful, a dimension built from community, belonging, identity, and the fear of being cut off from the people who shaped you. And that social force holds on even when belief itself begins to crack. The fear of losing your tribe. Letting go of God is not just a personal shift the way people often imagine it. In many places, it is social suicide. It means stepping outside the circle you were raised in and watching the circle close without you. People rarely cling to religion because of doctrine. They cling because the cost of honesty is too high. It can mean losing family, losing friends, losing community, losing identity. These losses do not arrive as distant ideas. They arrive as immediate threats. The moment you question belief, you risk becoming the outsider in the very group that shaped your sense of self. When belief is tied to belonging, doubt transforms into something heavier. It does not feel like a question, it feels like betrayal. And betrayal carries an emotional weight that feels almost like death. Humans are tribal creatures. For most of our history, being pushed out of the group was a real survival threat. That instinct still exists in the mind even when the danger is no longer physical. The fear of isolation feels ancient. It feels primal. It feels like your world collapsing, even if nothing has physically changed. This is why so many people pretend to believe. They nod, they smile, they attend, they repeat, not because the doctrine makes sense, but because the relationships are too valuable to risk. Honesty becomes dangerous. Silence feels safer. Pretending becomes a survival strategy. And the pressure of that silence shapes the next generation in the same way, creating a cycle that lasts for centuries. But beneath the fear of losing your tribe lies something even darker. It is not social. It is not cultural. It is internal. It is the need to avoid a truth that is far more frightening than loneliness. And that is where the next reason begins. The need for someone to blame. Life is brutal. Life is unfair. Life is random in ways that shake people to their core. Things happen that make no sense. People we love vanish without warning. Hard work goes unrewarded. Good intentions collapse. And when suffering hits, the human mind looks for somewhere to place the weight. Pain needs a direction. It needs a target. It needs something to accuse. Religion gives that target instantly. It gives you a villain. It gives you a devil. It gives you a cosmic conspiracy where forces of good and evil battle for your soul. Suddenly, your heartbreak is not just heartbreak. Your loss is not just loss. Your struggle is not just struggle. It is part of a larger story. Something caused it. Something intended it. Something wanted it to happen or tried to stop it. This creates a sense of control even inside chaos, because if there is an enemy, then there is a reason. And if there is a reason, then your suffering feels less meaningless. It is much easier to believe in an invisible enemy than to face a harder truth. The truth that suffering is part of the human condition. The truth that life does not give explanations. The truth that chaos does not have a mastermind behind it. There is no cosmic chessboard, no spiritual sabotage, just the unpredictable nature of existence. Without religion, blame has nowhere to go. And that emptiness terrifies people. Because if there is no villain, then there is no narrative. And if there is no narrative, then the pain must simply be endured without a story to hold it. But beneath this search for someone to blame, there is a final truth. A truth most people avoid because it strikes at the core of self-identity. And it is the hardest truth of all. The fear of being fully responsible. Letting go of God does not simply remove a belief from your mind. It removes something far more important. It removes the excuse. It removes the idea that everything is happening according to a divine plan. It removes the belief that destiny is guiding your steps. It removes the comforting thought that your struggles are part of a spiritual trial designed to teach you something. Without that framework, you are left with something much heavier. You are left with yourself, your choices, your habits, your patterns, and the consequences that follow each one. That level of responsibility is terrifying. It is easier to say you are being tested than to admit you made a mistake. It is easier to say God has a purpose for your suffering than to accept that life is unpredictable and often chaotic. It is easier to say everything happens for a reason than to admit that sometimes things happen for no reason at all. When the safety net of divine intention disappears, your life becomes unscripted. And an unscripted life demands personal accountability. Because if there is no God, then there is no script. There is no cosmic author writing your next chapter. There is no hidden meaning behind every obstacle. There is no supernatural guidance nudging you toward a predetermined path. There is only you, trying to navigate a complex world with your own limited understanding. And if there is no script, your life becomes entirely your responsibility. Every success, every failure, every direction you choose is yours alone. This is the truth most people do not want to face. Not because it is dark, but because it is demanding. It asks you to grow. It asks you to decide. It asks you to step forward without a story to hide behind. And that fear leads directly to the real reason people cling so tightly. The real reason people can't let go. It is simple. It is human. And it is brutally honest. People do not cling to God for comfort the way they often claim. They cling to avoid collapse. They cling because the belief system they inherited has become the emotional scaffolding holding up their world. It supports their identity. It props up their sense of purpose. It holds together their understanding of life and death. It gives structure to chaos and meaning to suffering. When that scaffolding is suddenly removed, the entire inner world begins to shake. This is why belief feels so immovable. Not because it is backed by evidence, but because it has been holding up a lifetime of fears, memories, and hopes. For many people, questioning God feels the same as pulling out the central pillar in a building they have lived in for decades. They are not afraid of losing a doctrine. They are afraid of emotional collapse. They are afraid that without God, they will not know who they are or what they are standing on. So they hold on. They hold on even when doubts grow louder. They hold on even when the stories stop making sense. They hold on even when logic points clearly in another direction. They are not clinging because the belief is strong. They are clinging because they feel fragile. Belief becomes a survival instinct, a familiar structure that keeps everything from falling apart. But fragility is not permanent. It can be outgrown. When a person slowly replaces inherited stories with self-understanding, when they build meaning from their own choices rather than ancient texts, something shifts. The scaffolding becomes internal rather than external, and that changes everything. Because once strength comes from within, the need for God fades on its own. Letting go of God isn't about rebellion. It's not about anger. It's not even about disbelief. It's about courage. The courage to stand in a universe that doesn't bend itself around your fears. A universe that doesn't watch you, judge you, or promise you meaning. A universe where meaning is something you create. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop needing God, you become stronger than the God you once feared. If this video opened a door in your mind, even slightly, then don't stop here. Subscribe, stay curious, and keep questioning the beliefs you were told never to touch. Because that's how real freedom begins.